بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, today we continue our discussion about liqa'ullah and the concept of qurb and also who are muqarrabun. These are very important topics and form the core of Islamic spirituality, because our aim is to get as close as possible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Quran, we have expressions such as لقاء ربكم لقاء ربه لقاءنا لقاء الآخرة. When it comes to لقاء ربكم لقاء رب and لقاء ربه means to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to لقاء الآخرة, it seems that it means لقاء of Allah in the hereafter, not meeting the hereafter. Meeting of Allah in the hereafter. And also we have mulaqin hisabiyah. I will meet the accounting for what I have done in dunya. There is a hadith in Tawheed by Shaykh al-Saduq Rizwanullah ta'ala alayh, that someone who had difficulty in understanding some verses of the Quran asked about them from Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and Imam explained for him, and then he prays for Imam and said, "You saved me from confusion and being perplexed." One of the verses that he asked Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam is verse 5 of Suratul Ankabut. من كان يرجو لقاء الله فإن أجل الله لآت وهو السميع العليم. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, according to this hadith, which is in At-Tawheed of Shaykh al-Saduq, page 267, said, وَكَذَلِكَ قَوْلُهُ فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَقَوْلُهُ مَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ أَجَلَ اللَّهِ لَآتٍ، يعني من كان يؤمن بأنه مبعوث. The one who believes that he will be resurrected. فَإِنَّ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ لَآتٍ. The promise of Allah will certainly come. Promise of reward and punishment. مِنَ الثَّوَابِ وَالْعِقَابِ. فَاللِّقَاءُ هَاهُنَا لَيْسَ بِالرُّؤْيَةِ. Liqa'ullah doesn't mean that you will see God physically. With your eyes you can see God. وَاللِّقَاءُ هُوَ الْبَعْثِ. Liqa means resurrection. فَافْهَمْ جَمِيعَ مَا فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ مِنْ لِقَائِهِ. Whatever is mentioned in the Quran about liqa'ullah, meeting Allah, فَإِنَّهُ يَعْنِي بِذَلِكَ الْبَعْثِ. It refers to ba'th, resurrection. The fact that liqa doesn't mean seeing Allah and meeting Him physically, it's very clear. But when Amirul Mu'minin says liqa means ba'th, does this mean that liqa is exactly the same as ba'th or resurrection, or it is an implication? Liqa is something that happens after resurrection. It's a related subject, but not exactly ba'th. Because Amir al-Mu'minin wants to give the person an answer that would clarify for him to his level of knowledge. Liqa'ullah seems to be something that happens after we are resurrected, but anyway, it's not ru'ya as we have in the hadith. Allama Tabatabai Rizwanullah Ta'ala alayh in Al-Mizan has actually referred to this hadith and also has explained the meaning of liqa. If you go to Al-Mizan, page 111 of volume 16, so you will find that he says, muraduhu alayhi salam nafyu ru'yatil hissiyah. When he mentions this hadith, he says what Amirul Mu'minin wants to convey is that liqa is not seeing Allah with your eyes. وَالتَّفْسِيرُ بِاللَّازِمِ الْمَعْنَى. Interpreting liqa as ba'as means interpreting it by mentioning what is an implication of the meaning of liqa. So what is the meaning of liqa? In the same volume, page 102, volume 16 of Al-Mizan, page 102. So before mentioning hadith, as you know, he has bayan. So over there he says, Al-muradu bil-liqa'illah wuquf al-abd mawqifan la hijab baynahu wa bayna rabbih. Liqa'ullah means that the servant of Allah stands in a situation that there would be no veil between him and his Lord. La hijab baynahu wa bayna rabbih. Kama huwa shan yawm al-qiyamah. On the day of judgment, we don't have hijab. This situation that we have in dunya, we have ghaib and shuhud, is no longer available in the hereafter. In the hereafter, everything is shuhud. There is no ghaib, there is no unseen, there is no veil. Everything is clear as it is. And therefore, no one would have doubt about Allah because they can see everything as dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you ask anyone, لَمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ, to whom kingdom belongs today, everyone would say, Lillahi al-Wahid al-Qahhar. It belongs to Allah. But in dunya, there is possibility of people not seeing the other side, not believing in ghaib. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ is a quality of believers. There are people who don't believe in ghaib. Why? Because in dunya we have such a thing, that there is ghaib and there is shuhud. Certain things are presented in the way that there is a chance for someone who wants to just go by senses may not find them. They need to cultivate their understanding. They need to be opening their, vision and mind so that they can believe in the unseen. But in the akhirah, no, everything is clear. So, Allama says, liqa is to stand in such a position that there is no hijab between the servant and Allah. Kama huwa shan yawm al-qiyamah. As it is the situation on the Day of Judgment. This is not the only case. Even in dunya, this can happen for some people, that there is no hijab between them and Allah. But on the Day of Judgment, for everyone. Why? Because on the Day of Judgment is ظرف ظهور الحقائق, is the vessel for manifestation of all the facts and realities as they are. قال تعالى وَيَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْحَقُّ الْمُبِينُ. They would know that Allah is the truth which is clear. Not only He is haq, in dunya also He is haq, but in the akhirah is al-mubin. Everyone can understand. Then he says, inshallah, I will come back to the concept of liqa later, but let me finish this part from Al-Mizan. He says, قِيلَ الْمُرَادُ بِالْلِقَاءِ اللَّهُ وَالْبَعْثِ. It has been said that liqa'ullah means ba'th. He doesn't go into details here, but as I said, few pages later, he quotes the hadith where liqa'ullah is interpreted as ba'th. But as we said, that is tafsir bil-lazim al-ma'na. Otherwise, liqa'ullah doesn't mean ba'th itself. قيل الوصول إلى العاقبة من لقاء ملك الموت والحساب والجزاء. Reaching the end of the process, when you see the angel of death, and then there is accounting and recompensation. وَقِيلَ الْمُرَادُ مُلَاقَاتُ جَزَاءِ اللَّهِ. Some people meeting reward and punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقِيلَ مُلَاقَاتُ حُكْمِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And also they have said that liqa means you would see what judgment is going to be made for you on the Day of Judgment. So you would see the judgment, the decree which will be issued for you. And then يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ Allah, he says in some of these interpretations, raja becomes khawf. Instead of hope becomes fear. Because if raja means, for example, seeing the punishment, then it can become khawf, or hope of reward and fear of punishment, for example. وَهَذِهِ وُجُوهٌ مَجَازِيَّةٌ بَعِيدَةٌ لَا مُوجِبَ لَهَا. These interpretations, these meanings are metaphoric and they are very unlikely unless someone says that we are mentioning what is implied by the meaning. La mujib la. There is no need to go to the metaphoric meaning. As long as we can interpret something with true meaning, we should not go for metaphoric meaning. As-salatul haqiqah. إلا أن يكون من التفسير باللازم المعنى. If you are doing tafsir according to what is implied by the meaning, that's fine. It's not then غير بعيد. And as I said, for Bas, we have hadith, and he says that is tafsir باللازم المعنى. So, according to Allama Rizwanullah Ta'ala alayh, liqa'ullah is when there is no hijab, no veil between Allah and His servant. It happens on the Day of Judgment, but it can also happen in dunya. On the Day of Judgment, it happens to everyone. In dunya, can happen to only some people. For example, Amir al-Mu'min says, لو كشف الغطاء ما ازددت يقينا. So for him, there is no hijab now. For people who have managed to penetrate veils, there is no hijab now. Inshallah, I will mention the passage from Munajat Sha'baniyah. Are everyone, all people, is everyone going to enjoy liqa'ullah when there is no hijab? No. Some people who are good, who are pious, who have done good things, they will enjoy when there is no hijab. وجوه يومئذ ناظرة إلى ربها ناظرة. ناظرة, the first means they are very happy, joyful. Nadhara means they're looking at their Lord, not physically, of course, looking at the face of their Lord. They are very happy because they have done good things, they have listened to God, they are very happy. But there are people that they will be very embarrassed and they don't want even to look up. ترهقها قترة عليها غبرة. So they don't have the same experience. But if it happens in dunya, certainly it happens only to good people who are prepared for that. It doesn't happen by force. This happens, by their own preparation and volunteer actions. Therefore, they enjoy it definitely. And then in Munajat Sha'baniyah, we see that there is actually a request for this. So it's possible. إلهي حبلي كمال الانقطاع إليك وأنر أبصار قلوبنا بضياء نظرها إليك حتى تخرق أبصار القلوب حجب النور فتصل إلى معدن العظمة. In some lectures, alhamdulillah, we have had reflections on this passage from Munajat Sha'baniyah. I don't want to go into discussion about this passage. Just one point which is about our discussion is that, as you see, it's possible, and this is why we ask for. If something is not possible, we don't ask for. It's possible that in dunya, because if it is in the akhirah, it's going to happen anyway. We don't pray to Allah to, for example, have resurrection, or to be given our record of amal, etc. These are going to happen. Hisab is going to happen. We are asking for hijab, raf'ul hujub in dunya. Ilahi habli kamal al-inqita' ilayk means in dunya, in this life. Please give me complete and perfect detachment from everything and then being attached to you. And please enlighten the eyes of the heart with the light of looking at you. When you look at light, you don't need your own light. If I look at a candle, even in the dark night, I can see the candle, because looking at the candle gives my eye enough light to see it. If we look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then looking at Him gives us light. بِضِيَاءٍ نَظَرَهَا إِلَيْكَ حَتَّى تَخْرَقَ أَبْصَارُ الْقُلُوبِ حُجُبَ النُّورِ. To the extent that eyes of the heart penetrates veils of light. So with light of looking at him, we can remove any veils and reach Ma'adin al-Azama, the source of greatness and grandeur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is liqa'ullah, which is voluntary, which is the aim of the mystics, and this is possible in dunya. Liqa'ullah, in the sense of just removing of hijab, happens to everyone on the Day of Judgment anyway. So, mu'min is the one that believes in liqa'ullah, in the hereafter, and prepares himself or herself for that. And if they do it properly, even in dunya, hijab will be removed for them. And therefore, the best preparation for something is that if you experience it. If we experience it in dunya, then we are not going to be afraid of death. We know that what is going to happen, and we know that it will be a good experience. I have a discussion here about one difference between these two kinds of experiences. There can be other differences, but I'm mentioning one. What is the difference between you experiencing liqa'ullah and raf'ul hujub in dunya, or experiencing it in the hereafter? Different issues can be mentioned, but in addition to what we have said so far about one is voluntary, one is not voluntary, one needs provision, etc. But one important difference is this, that if you manage to have raf'ul hujub in dunya, then it means that you are prepared for that and you have ascended in level of perfection and understanding. So when raf'ul hijab is happening, you are in a better position and higher position to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore appreciate him and love him and enjoy this encounter. But if you have not ascended in perfection and understanding, and hijab is removed, you are looking from very low place at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the highest of the high. So my understanding is that even on the Day of Judgment, when hijab is removed, the experience of awliyaullah and people who didn't believe, people who were attached to dunya, is not just one is happy and one is not happy. Is that they have different levels of understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore different levels of appreciation. I use this example. Imagine if you are looking from, for example, a keyhole in the door at something. For example, there is a palace, beautiful palace with gardens and facilities and courtyards, but you are seeing from a keyhole. It's very small, and even if this is removed and you can see it, but if you are far, you can see it, but still you cannot see lots of details. But if in addition to removing the key and having wider vision, you can also rise and from a higher position look at that palace, that might be, for example, on top of a hill also, then you have better vision, better sight. So imagine there are two people who are standing in front of a great alim or ma'soom, for example. Two people, they can see him and talk to him and listen to him. There is no hijab. But this doesn't mean that they have the same level of understanding and appreciation. Even in heaven, when people meet, for example, the prophets or imams, I believe that they don't have the same experience, because you can see them horizontally and you can see them vertically. So if someone in dunya or in akhirah is with imam, but he himself has better understanding, better spirituality, is closer to God, can better meet imam. Because this is the meeting of the spirits, not meeting of bodies. And a spirit, if it's more similar, can have better understanding, better encounter. So even on the Day of Judgment, my understanding is that liqa is not the same for everyone. But in dunya, the good thing is that you have already ascended. There is no possibility of having liqa without you ascending. Yes, sometimes in dunya, maybe Allah, for the sake of completing hujjah, even for a bad person, temporarily removes the veil. Maybe they can see even hell, for example. They can see, for example, angels. It's possible, but this is temporary and it's very limited. But if they want to have that kind of liqa, which is aimed by mystics, it's not possible without ascending in perfection and resembling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more. I have also made some reference to liqa'ullah and being prepared for that from some du'as or hadith, for example. One famous one is from Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Tuhaful Uqul, page 245. ألا ترون أن الحق لا يعمل به وأن الباطل لا يتناهى عنه ليرغب المؤمن في لقاء الله محقا. A mu'min, a believer, should be eager to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially when you see lots of corruption, when you see lots of injustice happening. You should not be preferring living in this world. Yes, if you can do something good, if you can change the situation, then you would do your best in improving the situation. But it's not that you are attached to dunya. You see what is happening in dunya, and you see that other than just fulfilling the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your responsibility, there is no reason to stay here anymore because you are not enjoying. So mu'min should be eager to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لِيَرْغَبِ الْمُؤْمِنُ فِي لِقَاءِ اللَّهِ. It's a sign of mu'min that likes liqa'ullah. Also Imam Hussein alayhi salam, before leaving Mecca, in a hadith which is in Bihar al-Anwar, volume 44, page 367, said, Man kana fina badilan muhjatah muvattinan ala liqa'illahi nafsah falyarhal ma'na. And then he said, Anni rahilun musbihan inshallah. So whoever is willing to give his blood, the blood of heart, and has prepared himself for liqa'ullah, should come with us. If they have worldly reasons and intentions, no. let's be clear. There is no chance of gaining anything worldly. Don't come for power, for position, for money. Know that this is going to end with martyrdom. If you are happy, then you can come with us. So, موطنا على لقاء الله. Also, in Khutbatul Muttaqin of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salam, we have this in some versions. فلولا الآجال التي كتب الله لهم لم تستقر أرواحهم في أجسادهم طرفة عين. In some version has شوقا إلى الثواب خوفا من العقاب, but in some versions has شوقا إلى لقاء الله والثواب. شوقا إلى لقاء الله والثواب. For example, in Kanzul Fawaid, volume 1, page 90, has this لقاء الله. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Ibn Mas'ud, وَعْزِمْ عَلَى مُفَارَقَةِ الدُّنْيَا. O Ibn Mas'ud, be determined for departing and separating yourself from dunya. So this is something that you need to prepare yourself for that. Don't be attached to dunya. وَأَحِبَّ لِقَاءَ اللَّهِ. Love meeting Allah. وَلَا تَكْرَهْ لِقَاءَهِ. Don't dislike لقاء Allah. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ اللِّقَاءَ مَنْ يُحِبُّ لِقَاءَهِ وَيَكْرَهُ اللِّقَاءَ مَنْ يَكْرَهُ لِقَاءَهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves to meet those that love to meet him and dislikes to meet those that dislike to meet him. You know, you are also yourself like this. If you know someone doesn't like to meet you and is there because is forced or felt embarrassed not to come, then you don't enjoy. So if you don't like to see me, okay, I also don't like to see you. Most of the time is this, unless there is a secondary reason. For example, if you are a good person and you see that someone is not, for example, good, you say, I love to see him even if he doesn't like to see me, so that maybe I can help him. Like a doctor who wants to help the patient, but maybe the patient doesn't want to go to doctor. Family take this person to doctor, but he doesn't like to see the doctor. It's possible. But normally, it's mutual. If you see someone likes to see you, you want also to see them. Okay? But in any case, in the case of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not a matter of emotion. It's not a matter of reaction. It's not that Allah wants to react to us. No, it means that if you don't like to meet him, then you have problems. And these problems are expressed by not Allah wanting to see you. So it doesn't mean that Allah is reacting. It means that this reflects on more underlying problems. Also, we have this concept of liqa in the months of Ramadan, that the one who fasts has two joys, two kind of, or you can say two joyful moments. One is when breaks the fasting, and one is when meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when has liqa. There is a hadith which is very much useful in giving us a kind of clarification, because we often worry that it seems we are not ready for death, and because we don't love dying, and we don't love going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it seems we are attached to dunya. We are worried about this. Yeah. So a person asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, أصلحك الله من أحب لقاء الله أحب الله لقاءه ومن أبغض لقاء الله أبغض الله لقاءه. What we had just in the hadith of Rasulullah. He said to Imam, is this the case that if someone loves liqa'ullah, Allah will love his meeting, and if someone dislikes, Allah also would be the same? Is this correct? قال نعم. Imam said yes. Then he says, قلت فوالله إنا لنكره الموت. Then by Allah we dislike death. So he honestly said, that we dislike this, then it means that Allah doesn't like us. We have big problem. فقال ليس ذلك حيث تذهب. No, it doesn't mean what you thought. It's not the same way that you imagine. إنما ذلك عند المعاينة. When you see the other side and there is no hijab, if at that time you like liqa'ullah, then Allah likes meeting you. If at that time you don't like, then it means you have a problem. إنما ذلك عند المعاينة إذا رأى ما يحب. When the one who is dying is seeing what he likes, فليس شيء أحب إليه من أن يتقدم. There is nothing dearer to him, more lovable to him than proceeding, going forward. So maybe now we are worried, but if we are true mu'min, inshallah at the time of death, we will not be worried, because Allah is going to show us, if we are true mu'min. Mu'mineen, Allah will show us and we will be very happy to go. So we would not leave this dunya at the end with sadness. وَاللَّهُ تَعَالَى يُحِبُّ اللِّقَاءَهُ وَهُوَ يُحِبُّ اللِّقَاءَ اللَّهِ. He would meet Allah while he is loving to meet him, and Allah is also loving to meet him. Hina izin. وَإِذَا رَأَى مَا يَكْرَهُ. But if someone see what he doesn't like, actually maybe there is someone who loves to die, maybe even has committed suicide, but then when hijab is removed, when they see the other side, they regret. They say, no, I don't want to go. I didn't know that what is waiting for me, what I have sent in advance. فَلَيْسَ شَيْءٌ أَبْغَضَ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ لِقَاءِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يُبْغِضُ اللِّقَاءَ. So there is nothing more disliked by him than meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah also doesn't like to meet him. This is in Al-Kafi, volume 3, page 134, and also Ma'an al-Akhbar, page 236. So this means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps his servants at the time of death by showing them things that would make them comfortable. Those who have faith in Akhirah, in their life, they have been working for Akhirah, they have always concern. Did I do enough to pass the test? Am I going to see Allah's pleasure or Allah's anger? So Allah, at that critical time, will show them something that would comfort them and would, stop their pain. Although it still might be difficult because we are not familiar, we don't know what is waiting, but at least we know that we are going into a nice world, and we are going to be okay, inshallah. Then people can have, of course, different experiences based on their levels. I am trying to escape some of the discussions, and I would like to reflect a little bit more on the concept of qurb. Before I mention Ayatollah Misbah's view, I would like to refer to Tafsir Namune. So you saw that Allama Tabatabai Rizwanullah Ta'ala alayh interpreted liqa'ullah as raf'ul hujub, and this can happen in dunya and akhirah. In Tafsir Namune, when ayah 110 of Surah Al-Kahf is interpreted, which you can find it in volume 12, page 577. It says, لقای پروردگار که همان مشاهده باطنی ذات پاک او با چشم دل و بصیرت درون است، گرچه در این دنیا هم برای مؤمنان راستین امکان پذیر است، اما از آنجا که این مسئله در قیامت به خاطر مشاهده آثار بیشتر و روشنتر و صریحتر جنبه همگانی و عمومی پیدا می کند، این تعبیر در لسان قرآن معمولاً در مورد روز قیامت به کار رفته است. Very carefully they are trying to explain the relation between liqa'ullah in dunya and akhirah, and why in the Quran normally liqa'ullah used for akhirah. So the translation is as follows: liqa'ullah, which is the same as witnessing Allah internally with the eyes of the heart and insights of inside, basirat darun. So you have sight and insight, sight of the eyes of the heart and insight. It says, although this is possible in this world for true believers, but because in the hereafter people see more effects and becomes clearer, it can happen for everyone. It becomes general. Therefore, in the Quran, it is normally used for the day of judgment, liqa'ullah. So what they want to say is that liqa'ullah is mushtarak ma'navi. It has general meaning. Most of the time it's used to refer to the experience on the day of judgment, but the concept is more general. It's not limited to that. It can happen also in dunya. So both Al-Mizan and Tafsir al-Namune, they seem to interpret liqa'ullah, whether for urafa in dunya, for awliyaullah in dunya, or for everyone in akhirah, as epistemic, as something which is a matter of ma'rifah, it's a matter of raf'ul hijab. Okay? This is what they both seem to suggest. let me also quote what Ayatollah Misbah says, and then I will inshallah mention my humble opinion. Ayatollah Misbah, in two of his works, which are of course compiled by some scholars based on his lectures, one in Falsafa Akhlaq and one in پیشنیازهای مدیریت اسلامی. In the discussion about Islamic management, also there is a discussion about قرب, but also in فلسفه أخلاق. He says قرب is sometimes used in a sense of اعتبار. It is a kind of assumption. It's not real, it's not واقعي. It's based on our assumptions and agreements. For example, you are head of an organization or institute, then you make someone your deputy. This person becomes closer to you. But this doesn't mean necessarily this person has become more similar to you. Maybe out of few equals, you have to choose someone. You choose someone, and from the time of appointment, he becomes closer to you in the hierarchy. But it's not that that person has actually gone higher. Maybe even sometimes people choose someone who are less qualified because they are, for example, their friends or family members or whatever. Maybe the leader, the head, the boss himself is worse than his employees. So it's possible. This is etibari. They say today you are, for example, minister, tomorrow they say you are not minister. This is based on agreement, assumptions, etc., designation. But then he says there are real meanings for qurb. And he mentions two. One is falsafi, one is arzashi. One is philosophical, one is based on values. The philosophical one is, according to Ayatollah Misbah, something that doesn't match our discussion because it's already there. There is very close relation between cause and effects, and especially if you study transcendent philosophy of Mullah Sadra, you will realize that effects are completely dependent on the cause, and even they say that ma'lul ayn rabt bi'illat. The effect is nothing other than reliance and connection with the cause. There is no separation. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, explaining the relation between creatures and Allah, said that داخل, something similar to this, داخل في الأشياء لا بالممازجة وخارج عن الأشياء لا بالمزايلة. So he's in everything without being part of them, without being mixed with them. Allah is in us, but he's not in us like, for example, parts of body are inside us. No. He's inside us without being part of us, without being mixed with us. And he's outside us without being separate from us. So, this is qurb. Everything is close to him. When Quran says, نَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, we are closer to man than his jugular vein. This is not only for human beings. Every insect, every plant, every drop of water they are very, very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense that there is nothing to separate them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So Ayatollah Misbah says this cannot be the meaning that we want when we talk about seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This philosophical is real, it's not etibari, but it's not what we want. It is for everyone, good people, bad people. Every creature has this kind of philosophical closeness. Then he says we are looking for a kind of nearness that can happen voluntarily. Therefore, it's a value. It is a kind of achievement. And then he says that is in ma'rifah, in knowledge. Because closeness to Allah is closeness of the spirit, not body. Body of all people are the same with respect to relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our body and plants, living beings, non-living beings, we are all close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the spirit of some people can be close, can be far. So the nearness, which is a value, which is an advantage, which is a pleasure, and we need to achieve voluntarily, is about the soul or a spirit. And then he says, the main feature of a spirit is agahi, is awareness, is knowledge. What makes human beings special is their understanding, their ilm. Even in this, in the story of appointment of Adam alayhi salam as Khalifatullah, how did Allah convince angels that Adam is qualified for this? By referring to the capacity of Adam for learning. وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها ثم عرضهم على الملائكة فقال أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء إن كنتم صادقين. So when Ayatollah Misbah says, when we get closer to Allah, it means that we have more knowledge of Him. And if we reach the point that we can have knowledge by presence, ilm huduri, knowledge by presence of Allah, then this is the highest level of nearness to Allah. As you know, knowledge by presence is when what is known is present for what is the knower. Yeah, حضور المعلوم لدى العالم, not حضور الصورة المعلوم لدى العالم. علم حصولي, conceptual knowledge, is when the image of what is known is present. But علم حصولي, there is no need for image. What is known is present for the knower. So he says, if we reach this level of understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are very close to Him. So maybe the same idea of Allama Tabatabai about Raf'ul Hujub, but putting it in this, kind of discourse, that it is a matter of ilm husuli. In dunya this happens voluntarily. You have to work for it, you have to achieve it, and maybe he means that on the day of judgment it happens to everyone. I don't quote him for this because I need to go back and to see whether he has actually said this or not, but maybe he means the same, that on the day of judgment this happens to everyone. Now, we have some reflections on this. I have some disagreement, and also I want to expand on the concept of muqarrab, but I'm worried about time. If I start, then it may take longer. So maybe I stop here. If you have any questions and comments, we can discuss. And then inshallah, next week, we will complete this discussion. What is our comment on this view? And then we introduce the concept of muqarrab from our humble perspective, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Do you have any questions, any comments?
Sorry, it was mute, and I think Brother Salamati had a question.
Yes, Bismillah.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much for your informative and beneficial lecture, dear Professor. My question is about the two types of liqa that you have already made a mention of, that we have another type of liqa which can occur in the same dunya we are living in this moment. So you said that there might be some differences. One of the differences that you came across is that the people are in different levels of understanding and appreciation. Mm. So my question is, can we say that the person or the individual who came to the level of liqa in dunya is not stopped, and he goes further and further and further, and the extent of this uncover and reveal and whatever we can call it, which occurs in the hereafter and in akhirah, then is much more different, broader, wider, I don't know, stronger than a person who first meets the Almighty God in Akhirah.
Yeah. So my understanding is that Raf'ul Hijab has different levels. It's not just one level. It's not that you say either hijab is removed or not removed, so they are all the same, because they say hijab is removed on the day of judgment. I say no. Even if hijab is removed, but the level of ma'rifah and understanding and appreciation is different. Because no one can know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfectly unless would has ascended in his perfection. And definitely with perfect understanding comes love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those who see without hijab, they may not love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they may not have ascended in perfection. Therefore their experience is very minimal. They may have even pain of this. Yes, this is something that inshallah I want to expand, that I think it's not just a matter of Raf'ul Hijab or Ilm Husuli. It's not just that.
Thank you. But my next question is that if you accept what I just said about these levels, so what happens, what about Amir al-Mu'mineen? So here we can say that even for Amir al-Mu'mineen, if he goes to the hereafter to
Sorry, it was disconnected. When Amir al-Mu'mineen?
Yes, I said that with the acceptance of what you just said, and I asked it, then what can we say? Can we say that in the further stages and in the hereafter there is nothing more for Amir al-Mu'mineen?
It's possible that before you die, you will complete your journey. This is possible. But also, this particular hadith can mean that it's not that I have now some doubts or some uncertainties. For me, already everything is clear, everything is 100% sure. And I'm not going to, for example, stop doubting after hijab is removed, or my yaqeen is complete from now. This can be one meaning. It doesn't necessarily mean, just this sentence, that I'm not going to have any change. I'm not going to, for example, enjoy more or rise more. It may not mean that.
Thanks.
May Allah bless you, inshallah. What time is Salat there?
East. 5:20.
Okay.
After 20 minutes.
Okay, so maybe if we start, inshallah, after Salat. So what time you can finish? 5:50?
Yes.
Okay. So inshallah 5:50, which will be 2:20, yeah? 2:20 inshallah UK time. See you inshallah.
Okay.
التماس.
Thank you.